Councillor, Councillor Winiata, followed by Councillor Turner, followed by Councillor Foley.
Thank you, Chair. Costs money to be a big city. I've seen and lived in a community that's on the end of rate increases that it doesn't want. But it was also on the end of rate increases not going up as they appropriately should have when the super city was around. So if you want any idea to have any idea of seeing what that looks like, it results in fairer funding coming around 15 years later, which is still not quite hitting the mark with what the community needs. It is a problem if Councillor Turner is feeling blocked or told that he's not looking at things correctly. We need complete transparency and quality guidance in order to move forward. But by comparison to other cities or territorial authorities, we're skating through this rates increase because we get infrastructure. If you look at Wellington got a stinky harbour, and they're looking at a double-digit increase year on year. We have got something that's going to move us into the future, whether we think so or not. A city that is easy to get around in will bring investment and will grow the city in future years. So by saying that nobody benefits, there is potential for that to be slightly short-sighted, but that's my opinion, because a successful and winning city is going to be a case where a rising tide lifts all boats, and the CRL is a result of that. With the Mayor's comments on movie nights and things like that, which local boards make decisions on, local boards are stuck with preferred suppliers from council. So we need to really dig into how council is looking at contracts, and I do appreciate the fact that local boards will have more decision-making power moving forward, which will help save on costs. But we can't forget that the average yearly increase from 2010 to 2019 was 3.1%. So the rates have come home to roost. Depreciation has come home to roost, and we're required to make a decision that I don't want to make, but I'm having to sit on. This isn't a number that I'm happy with, but if it means that it gets the infrastructure out of the way, it helps move the city forward, like we have to believe that it will, and I believe that it will, then I look forward to next year when the rates are in line with inflation and hopefully lower as through the long-term plan as Finance Ross Tucker has said. If they aren't, then we've got definite problems, but that is an issue that we have 12 months to get to work on with staff towards the long-term plan. But we have many cost savings to make. Unfortunately, those cost savings don't result in a rates reduction. It just results in less rates moving forward. But John, I value your work. I like your advocacy. However, I can't support your amendments right now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've listened to a lot of complicated debate today for what is basically a simple issue. The council is outspending our income. We have been for a long time, for ages. And as a multi-billion-dollar organisation, we aren't resilient enough to stand a fuel shock, despite Mr. Mayor saying that our contractors, who are facing most of it, should lump it and buckle up and tighten their belts. If we were the public, if we were ratepayers sitting in front of a bank manager interrogating us, he would tell us simply that you're spending more than you've got coming in, and offering that we are managing ourselves well and managing to pay our interest by debt funding, it wouldn't help our case, I don't think. That's the backdrop that the public are measuring us by. And if we step back and take a holistic look at this situation, it's the view, a face-to-face view, the view the public have. They see that our delivery our delivery is hugely out of scale with any other sector that you measure it against. Primarily our delivery of capital projects, renewals, etc. From the CRL to the Mayor's example of the steps. And there's hundreds in between that, thousands. In fact, I can't find one that you can argue the other way round. When I was on the Waitakere Rangers local board my first time during COVID, when there was money put up, some of it was government money, and we decided to put in a pop-up cycleway for 220,000, only 50K was the construction cost. I have pushed to get us to look at this area since I've sat here. And I've spoken with Councillor Gillan, Councillor Burns and others during the process of them putting together this motion. And I've challenged how we can get to this area of budgeting. This is where the money's disappearing. And they have more eloquently than me woven into this those desires that I'm bringing here for the public. What this motion is asking is for us to have a deeper, more transparent dive, a better relationship between us elected members and the council staff who are doing the managerial side of this governance process. So I support this motion because it gives us a chance to reset what we've got wrong. And until we do that, we're never going to stop these deficits. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Foley.
Thanks, Chair. Look, the struggle is real. Absolutely, the struggle is real. You know, the people that Councillor Alf and I represent in Manukau, we feel the increase in costs more than other parts of the city. That's true. Any increase in costs, whether it be fuel or rates or the cost of bread and milk at the supermarket, hits our families harder than in other parts of the city. And I acknowledge that. And so I really acknowledge the efforts that Councillor Gillan and Councillor Burns are trying to make and what they're trying to achieve in this amendment. I get it. I really do. But the cuts also being proposed and the savings being proposed will also hurt the people that I represent. You know, the extra 60 million, even the 106 million under the current mayoral proposal is going to be very difficult to achieve and will hit our communities really hard. The further cuts in grants to necessary groups, as Councillor Patterson-Hamlin said, those are the groups that our communities will turn to in times of crisis. And if those grants aren't there, then where will they go? Certainly not central government in this current regime. So I have to balance those things out. And when I consider what's being proposed in the amendment, a 2% saving is essentially about $1.65 a week in savings for our average household, maybe $3 a week for the, more expensive households. When I balance that against the cost that we will be facing in terms of 166 million in savings, or 276 million in savings, as the Deputy Mayor said, I just can't support the amendment. Ultimately, we will be looking at losses, job losses as well, if we're honest. These savings will mean and will result in job losses. And these are not numbers on a balance sheet. These are locals. These are our council staff. These are subcontractors who work for council. These are fellow Aucklanders who have mouths to feed as well and who contribute to our local economy. And so for all of those reasons, although 7.9% is painful, I do agree that it strikes a balance between affordability, funding services that we need to run our city, funding our local boards, capital investment, as well as at the end of it all, getting a CRL, which will be transformational for our transport in our city. And so for all of those reasons, and I commend Councillor Gillen and Councillor Burns for their efforts and what they're trying to do here. But for all of those reasons, I just can't support this amendment. Kia ora. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bartley, followed by Henderson, followed by Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Chair. I can't support this. I am worried about the deferred depreciation. It concerns me because of the effect on further degradation of community assets, which the public expect us to look after. We've also heard about the 230 million cost pressure resulting in possible 15% rates increases. And so the Mayor's proposal with the savings of 106 million gets it down to 7.9. And I understand the reason for the 7.9%. And yes, I agree with the speakers beforehand. It's going to really affect those who are already on limited incomes. But at the same time, people don't want to see us doing cuts to council services. They don't want to see cuts to the library hours. They don't want to see cuts affecting the pools or the parks or the halls. And so we've got to maintain our public services that we are already providing because more people are turning to them now. We heard that it's a period of volatility with this fuel crisis. And so that sets it apart from the emergency and the COVID budgets that we've had previously. So I can, understand the 7.9 and the City Rail link, which this Mayor didn't tie us into. But I appreciate his efforts to make sure we don't kick the can down the road to another council to deal with. We all know the city is growing, population is growing, we've got infrastructure everywhere. So to grow the city, because a lot of people are saying, oh man, Auckland is so behind, to grow the city is going to cost. And as people have said, we'll get a train set out of this. But it's really going to push the city because we really do need to improve our transport offerings in the city. I try not to be negative, and I'm finding it really hard to sit next to this cap over here that says rates. Yeah, this cap. Where there's a lot of talk of, God, keep the rates down. But at the same time, I see millions going into communities that you guys represent, calling for rates decreases or rates cuts. Millions go into your community. And one of the things you're proposing to defer is the sports funding or regional funding. And it's pissing me off because there's other parts of our area that need that funding, and millions has gone into your area, 8 million recently for a sports centre. What about the rest of our areas that are waiting to get that kind of funding and that support for our areas? So, yeah, I definitely don't support this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanking colleagues for this amendment and just acknowledging again that it's pretty weird asking your colleagues questions across the table. So just acknowledging your candour and your responses. Thanks for that. Acknowledging also there's been some fantastic contributions so far, but I have to shout out absolute ripper of a contribution from Councillor Patterson-Hamlin as a new councillor. Following that sort of thing is quite hard indeed, but I'll give it a bit of a crack. I can't, in good conscience, vote through something that is likely to result in a credit downgrade, that is likely to raise rates in future years of an unspecified amount, when there will already be pressure on those households next year. I'll tell you what, and the year after, and the year after. We have been advised in writing, and at the meeting today, what will happen if we delay fully funding depreciation, something this resolution actually endorses. That will mean more rates next year. That'll mean kicking the can down the road, someone else's problem. And I'm sure we'll come back next year and we won't vote through the rates then either from some of the people here. I believe in being honest and being straight up with the public and giving them the maximum information and certainty for them to feed back into when we're discussing the budget. This proposes an unspecified amount of extra cuts to public services. We don't know exactly where they are, what they're going to come from, what the money's going to be. The public don't know that either. They also have no obvious way to feed into this list or any other list that comes up in future months according to this resolution. We are on budget day asking for advice. There were plenty of opportunities to do this through a process that started 6 months ago. We're all here discussing the feedback forms and the consultation materials and all the rest of it, what the pros are going to be, several workshops. And now here we are asking for more advice. That to me is quite strange, to be frank. The list has a bunch of cuts to public services, some of which won't save money, some of which won't impact the current annual plan budget. The Value for Money Committee already finds savings in some of these areas, so that's a duplication. I won't go point by point, but one thing that particularly annoys me, apart from the depreciation thing, is regional events. That's particularly alarming. That's something that I think the public want to know about if we're going to pass something like this. We have a suggestion to cut regional events such as Diwali. The Santa Parade isn't safe, according to this resolution. How many Aucklanders want us to cut something like that? Yep. Every time, Councillor Lee. None of this has been tested with the public, and they won't want that sort of stuff, I'm sure of it. What also concerns me in this list is the way that it's actually drafted here. It excludes local board funding, but all other public services that the council provides are on the table, according to what's drafted here. It's a vote for a blank cheque to hack and slash at services the public rely upon more than ever in a cost of living crisis. Services people want, services people need to get them through hard times. And we're proposing to come back in a few months' time after advice and start hacking and slashing away. No, thank you. We were all here through this process to have these kind of conversations. I'm so surprised that we're having them now at the 11th hour. An entire new budget with very little advice on the impacts. That to me is not responsible governance. It is not responsible handling of public money. Colleagues, please be responsible with your vote as governors today and as guardians of the public purse and vote against this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Newman.
Well, thank you, Chair, and as the previous speaker will remember, we've had draft budgets presented around this time or very close to voting through the annual plan. I remember Councillor Foley's draft budget in 2023-24, very complex. It went to the issue of the airport share divestment, which had impacts on rates and other OPEX costs and what have you. That came through very late. We have to be sufficiently robust to handle all amendments. Whether or not we like them is a different matter, and that's what we're going to do here. Chair, I was quite askance at the request for the pre-lunch motion, and then of course we had I thought a bit of a Perry Mason Q&A of the mover of the amendment after lunch, and in my view that wasn't that helpful. But I have to say to the mover, Councillor Gillen, I think as the interrogation of you continued, I thought you did really well. You got stronger and stronger, and I'm sure that the growing strength of your advocacy was frustrating to some people around here, but I applaud you, so thank you. And I want to acknowledge the fact that Councillor Gillen was available during lunch and came and sat next to me, and I talked to him about a number of points that I have concerns with. And I'm grateful that, well, I have had the chance to discuss the matter with Councillor Gillen, but I explained to him that, look, I can't vote for something that puts up depreciation, because I'm actually probably one of the few that's been the earliest and the loudest on the need to ensure that we do fund depreciation. And it's not personal, Councillor Gillen, but that's the primary reason why I won't be voting for the amendment. But I say that, and I'm not sure I'll be speaking again today, Chair, but it's my strong preference actually that the number isn't 7.9. And I just hope that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor will consider maybe there is a need to move to a different number, not 5.9, but a different number. I mean, if it ends up, I will vote to pass the budget because I feel that I have to. But I would personally prefer a different number, and I believe that there is a need to identify the characteristics of the changes that would be required. And and I'm glad the journalists are on here because they can write about the things that I'm saying and declare me a heretic if they want. But I do think that there needs to be movement on PT fares and the concession. I think Councillor Williamson is absolutely right, and it's a fair point. But of course, around here, people struggle to identify the hard bits that they're prepared to vote down. I think that probably, yep, I do think that Green Star, 6-star is probably an unrealistic aspiration for the Chief Executive for all of our new builds. He will need to bring back some advice on that regardless, I'm sure, for the 10-year plan. And I know that we will have to have further reorganisations. There is an issue of the implementation and the timing for that. Look, I have to say to Councillor Gillen, look, yeah, probably on the food scraps thing, I'd switch my vote on that actually. If that one comes up, I'm happy to back changes on that. That will be of some concern to some, I'm sure. But Chair, I just want to make the point. Several months ago, I found myself being interviewed by Ryan Bridge, and for some reason I was interviewed. I know the Mayor wasn't available, the Deputy Mayor wasn't available, and you weren't available, so somehow I was the one being recorded explaining some of the proposals that I think needed to be considered. It is essential that we don't continue to have these budget debates where the objective is to set a target for the Chief Executive to go away and to colour in the canvas and explain exactly how the savings will be achieved. I think it's important, whether it be through the amendments or whether it be through the subsequent adjustments that the Mayor might want to consider, for us to have a vote on the specifics of these cuts, and probably they will need to be quite unpalatable, because unpalatable changes that are shared with all of Auckland is probably the most credible way forward. Otherwise, yeah, we will have continued increases in rates in the future, which will be deeply unpopular. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think someone at some point there, might have been the Mayor, mentioned about the 180 grand that we apparently pay the Auditor General. If it's the case, then we should maybe start listening to the Auditor General, because he or she has warned us about the situation that we're in today. Long-term financial sustainability and the ability to respond to unforeseen events. Unless we're saying, of course, that doesn't apply to Auckland Council, which is a little hard to maintain given that Auckland Council has historically accounted for over 50% of local government debt in New Zealand. What's been missing from any number of the speeches today is really a sense of context. You're dealing with this highest increase in the history of the super city, 7.9%, as if it's a one-off. No, it's not. It's not. It's one in a long trail since 2022-23. I'll start with my ward, which I do know a little bit about in terms of the impact of rates. Last year, nearly half the people, or half the ratepayers, 45 and 47% respectively, had rate increases of 10 to 20% or higher. So they're following up that historic increase with another 7.9% if they're lucky, because what we heard from the officers is that 7.9% is indeed an average, whereas in fact nearly 44% of people will get higher than 7.9%. Not surprisingly then, in the consultation results, the Hibiscus and Bays, there was a clear majority of people did not support most or any of the Mayor's proposal, and Upper Harbour there was also a majority who didn't support it as well. Across Auckland as a whole, you know, we had this rather strange anomaly where nearly 3,500 people were left out because of the manner in which they submitted. If they're included as individuals, which has been the case in the past, then the opposition there is 63%, as came up in Councillor Gillen's show there. But what does that mean for the other councillors sitting around? What are you really supporting here today? Well, in terms of that average ratepayer, since 22-23, their rates have gone up from 2,700, if this is passed, to 4,375. That's an increase of $1,579, 56% increase. That's what you're supporting. Another massive big, just the increase itself, a huge bill for those poor working class people or people on fixed incomes. How do you think they meet bills of $1,500 extra? If you're a superannuitant on single, $28,000 a year, or married, $22,000 a year. That's 20% of your salary or your income for the year, if that's all you've got. 20% and 25%. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to struggle, aren't you? You're going to struggle big time. Well, we could rate more, because we are rating more, but then we have been rating a lot more too since 2022-23. Rates revenue for the council has gone up from $2.27 billion to $3.35 billion. So 48% increase, over $1 billion more in rates intake we're getting now than just a couple of years back. Some of the people were belatedly talking about debt. Well, it's not as if we haven't been borrowing either. Debt up from 11.6, refined down a little bit from the annual plan to 17 billion now, increase of 5.4 billion, 47% rate increase in debt. At the same time, as I said, that we sold off this once in a generation lifetime windfall of the airport shares, which has just disappeared into the ether, the 835 million, and the other balance into the Auckland Future Fund. So I guess if you're a resident listening to that trajectory, that's baked in now. It's not just going to be tough it out for this year, guys, and it'll be better next year. No, it won't. It'll be the same role. We just as we hear the same tired old excuses, oh, it could be worse. It could, as if that's an explanation. It could be a higher rate increase. That's not going to be particularly convincing to people who have had 3 of these rate increases in a row and are looking down the barrel of yet another one next time. So you have to ask yourself, well, indeed, where does it all end? Well, in my view, it doesn't end. It just keeps going, as indeed the Auditor General has alluded to. It just keeps on going. And with that goes the struggle with people to make those rate increases. And I have to say, we're perhaps not the most representative body in the world in terms of ability to pay rates, particularly in this moment. There are a lot of people out there right across Auckland who are not going to be able to make those payments. And they're especially not going to be able to make those payments given that it's coming on the back of already historic high rate increases. So in that sense, there's no other option other than to support the motion put up by Councillor Gillen and Councillor Byrne. And I thank them for at least giving it the floor. Otherwise, you have to really ask, what are we doing here? If we're not going to contest or challenge, well, just be quiet and accept it. So good on you two for putting it up, and at least providing a forum where people can actually question this, point out what the trajectory is, and to maybe say, well, now's the time to do something about it, not belatedly 2 or 3 years down the track.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Lee, followed by Member Nataki. So, Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an interesting meeting. I want to thank Councillor Gillen and Councillor Burns for their effort today. I believe you two at least are keeping democracy alive in this council, and I say that pointedly because this morning we were told that 48% of individuals in Auckland who bothered to submit support this rates increase. But actually, the real figure is 63% of individuals oppose the rates increase, and that's not surprising, and only 31% supported it. But I guess management believes what they're saying, and that's troubling in itself, because once an organisation becomes unmoored from reality or unmoored from the base, its base, which are the people of Auckland, then it's in trouble. We're dealing with, it's not just about this annual plan, we're dealing with a long-term, fundamental, systemic problem within this experimental amalgamated council, which was not meant to have mega rates increases and huge debt at all. It was meant to be much more financially efficient, and that's not proven to be the case. If you, I think Councillor my colleague has mentioned our debt increase, but going back 5 years now, rates have gone up 7%, then 6.8%, then 5.8%, and now we're looking at 7.9%. All of these compounding. So we're taking more and more out of the people of Auckland, and at the same time, we are increasing our debt at a similar rate, which is really interesting. So back in 2002, the debt was 12.5 billion, and then it's gone up by 4%, 5%, and projected to go up another 5%, to go from 12.5 billion up to 17.6 billion. So that's going up in step with the rates increases, and also what doesn't get much scrutiny, fees and charges, which have gone up to an extraordinary level. And so the impact on the public of this rates increase, or this annual plan, and of course, there's always a reason for these over-the-top rates increases. There's always a crisis. If you go back and look at the 2020, I think it is, annual report, there was much ado in the messaging about the floods. Sorry, about the droughts, excuse me, the floods come later. The drought, and then there was COVID, and then there was the floods, and then there was a recovery. And now it's a CRL, but also there's a bit of talk about the fuel crisis. That'll be next year's crisis. Don't you worry. So the proposed 3.5, anyone wants to have a bet on whether the increase will be 3.5% next year, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards, but we'll hear a lot more about the fuel crisis in the coming months. But it's always an external problem, nothing to do with us. We're doing things okay, we're doing things right. When it comes to savings, members have straight away thought about, and I mentioned this the other evening, exactly focused on the things that people really want. There's a lot of expenditure that the people of Auckland know nothing about. There's a lot of expenditure, colleagues, that we know nothing about. We don't see the spreadsheets. We used to be given these a few years ago, but that service has been discontinued. But, you know, if you want to look at savings that won't affect the public, we've got three finance departments. We've got financial strategy, financial advisory, and group treasury, and the overheads are about 51 million a year, and included in that, 35.7 million per year on consultants, just for the finance departments. And so I'm sure we could make savings there that wouldn't affect the public. In fact, I know.
Councillor Lee,
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. The bell just went, so I'll get you to just be conscious that your time's, the 5 minutes is gone, so just perhaps if you can wind it up.
Move an extension like.
Maybe extension? Yep. Okay, there we go. Away you go, Mike.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So what I'm saying is that we have a long-term problem here. We have a systemic problem. We seem to be in official denial about it. Despite political promises to fix things, this trend, which precedes the present mayor, and obviously will go on after him unless we have a significant change, is non-sustainable. And just as the Auditor General, as Councillor Watson pointed out, we are actually on the road to, in so many words, on the road to financial failure if we keep on going down this track. The impact on the people of Auckland of this annual plan will be that rates will be about 4,500, average rates will be about 4,500 a year. Then there's about $1,200 for water care charges, and then other charges, fees and charges, pools, etc., service adjustment, so-called. That's another $120 a year. Residential parking, which has been gone up to $180 imposed on the ratepayers. In my ward, 71% of people oppose that. But, you know, we seem to be a democracy only in name, not in spirit. And that's why I want to commend the councillors who are trying to reduce, in light of the unacceptability of this continued imposition, this Sheriff of Nottingham attitude to the people of Auckland, want to reduce the rates by a modest 2% down to 5.9. Members around this table were very happy to vote for a 5.8% increase last year, and this would be less. This would still mean more income, that what Councillor Gillen and Councillor Burns are trying to achieve. Just by the 2% reduction would still produce more than what it did last year. So I'm just concerned that we are authors of our own demise here. We are victims of our own success, because this operation happens every year, and the councillors vote exactly as they are meant to, and they're not voting in the interests of the ratepayers of Auckland, and nor are they voting in the long-term interests of the Auckland Council. Auckland Council does not have doesn't have an income problem. It has an expenditure problem. Thank you.
Oh, okay, there we go. All right, thank you. Right, Member Nataki, thank you.
Tēnā tātou, kia ora. Oh, sorry, there's a hand up over here. No, e pai ana? Ka pai. Kia ora tātou katoa. Firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge the robust discussions on this very critical issue across the table and on both sides and all directions. I really just want to acknowledge the conversations that have been had already. I also want to acknowledge the mover and seconder of the amendment, and just wanting to find better ways for us to be able to service the greater people of Tāmaki Makaurau. It's good to see the initiatives being pushed forward and how they've been debated. It's really it's good to see this happening at this table. So I just want to acknowledge that. Chair, thank you for the time. We acknowledge the financial pressure facing all of Tāmaki Makaurau and the need for responsible stewardships of public funds. But fiscal discipline alone cannot be measured for good governance. My concern is not simply the reduction from 7.9 to 5.9, it's the consequence of the cuts required to get there and the long-term impact that may have across all of Tāmaki Makaurau. From a haukura perspective, we continue to hear clear themes from Māori to protect long-term resilience over short-term savings, uphold genuine partnership and participation, prioritise the health of whenua and wai, and avoid decisions that shift greater burden onto future generations. These are not abstract policy issues, they are responsibilities grounded in whakapapa and kaitiakitanga. When investment is reduced in environmental restoration, community resilience, prevention or partnership, the impacts are often felt most by communities already carrying pressure. And the long-term cost is usually far greater than the short-term savings. So while haukura supports financial discipline and the need to challenge inefficiencies and the need to also strengthen the way engagement happens within our communities, we can't support an amendment that risks weakening the long-term well-being, resilience and partnerships that underpin a strong and inclusive tāmaki makaurau. For those reasons, haukura opposes the amendments, but we still want to acknowledge the effort being put forward to try and find solutions for everybody. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora, thank you very much. Councillor Hills, followed by Councillor Fletcher.
Kia ora, thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for chairing so well today. It's an important debate to be having. There is no doubt on, I don't think, anyone's mind here that 7.9 is a really tough decision for everyone. And we've been grappling over that before the cost increases to our budgets came in through February and March and are still here today. A few things. There is, sadly, it seems, always a crisis, but they aren't made up or they aren't not faced by all of us, whether it was the 500 million we had to find through COVID, whether it was the 7% inflation rate that pushed us to a $326 million hole, whether it's now having to pay for a very expensive piece of infrastructure, or a fuel crisis that I don't think any of us were predicting even in January. So none of those things didn't happen, but we had to react to all of them. Our long-term plan sits at a really kind of basic range, sits at about a 2% inflation rate, and we prepare for shocks, but then we have to either fund or cut things out of our budget. We made some really hard decisions in 2023. Hundreds of jobs did go. Parts of departments were disbanded. There were a lot of things that had to go. There were cuts to almost every part of this organisation. We are trying to get back on track, and we are with the CRL, I guess, but it takes a lot for a big organisation like us to get big projects off the line. Our issue is we don't have a choice that this money needs to be spent. We can't not pay the interest. We cannot not pay the operating costs of this piece of infrastructure. It's there, it's coming. But what we do have a choice is to make some really strong decisions on savings, or some people might call them cuts. And that's what's happening through the Value for Money Committee. That's what Phil Wilson and his team are already doing. That's why many of the things listed in this amendment today are part of how we're going to find that 213 million already. That is already being baked in. It's baked in a little bit every year, and it will be baked into a much more extreme situation already. If we want to talk about whether the CRL is worth it to different parts of the city, well, we can debate that. A lot of people from all over the city will use this infrastructure, including the North Shore. The buses come right up against Te Waihoratu station from the busway, and you'll be able to connect around the city much faster. Also, it's no secret to me that we have the best bus services in the whole city, and a significant portion of funding goes towards those buses, and all of you around this table are paying for those for North Shore residents. Also, I think we're one of the only areas that happens to have quite a lot of ferries and quite a lot of ferry users, and there's big subsidies for those, and all of you around this table are paying for those. So it's always a bit of give and take. As I was speaking before about the Eastern Busway, that's $1.4 billion that we have been paying for that part of our city. Just want to talk about the major events, and my questions were, you cannot defer money without cutting the event. So I've had advice from Tātaki that if the decision is to remove that 7 million, the ASB Classic will not go ahead. Fashion Week, the Auckland Marathon, Armageddon, Symphony, Rainbow Games, Auckland Writers Festival, which had the biggest turnout ever. We have all sorts of events all across the city. The big announcement yesterday, the Warriors playing on Anzac Day, will not happen without this. Also, the All Blacks will go to Wellington or Christchurch because the money we are paying is keeping them here, but there's attractive offerings. Christchurch will be licking their lips at this discussion today. I've also spoken to a bunch of our local pest-free groups, Pest-free Kaipariki Project, a number of them on the North Shore who are quite shocked at what's been presented here, and they know that that will affect them quite considerably. With no consultation, they were shocked to even hear it was happening. Significant amounts of regional budget goes into pest-free groups and environmental groups right across our city. Events, the event list is long. Takapuna Winter Lights will not happen without this money. There's a bunch of amazing things on the shore, but across the city that won't happen. But the other thing is, if it's just for 1 year, not only will depreciation hit our budget likely through a downgrade, which will just replace services with more interest, which I don't want to do. Could I have a brief extension? The other thing is that we have to bring it all back. So we've been told that the inflation figure is doubled likely in December. That hits our PSA agreements, that hits a number of things. We will see significant increases to next year's rates that we have to deal with, and then try and bring everything back. We will end up with a 7 or 8% rates rise easily next year if we don't get on top of it this year. So I cannot vote for this. We've had all the advice in the world. We need to make a decision today. That's what this meeting is about. It's making decisions. This is not advice day. We've had 6 months of being able to ask advice, and a lot of this advice will go into saving that $213 million. A lot of that we don't have the ability to do today, but we're working on it. So for the long-term stability of our city and for investing in our environment, public transport, this amendment will start to rip apart all of that, and we'll end up paying more money on things like interest cost as opposed to services. Kia ora.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fletcher, followed by Councillor Filipaina. Chris.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Listening to some in the chamber here attempting to take the moral high ground, you might think it's business as usual here in Auckland right now. And I suppose if we sit around here in our ivory tower at the town hall in our comfortable seats, perhaps it feels that way. But my texts, calls, emails, and being regularly accosted in the supermarket when I'm shopping by ratepayers telling me that they have nothing left in the tank tells me that it is not business as usual. We're faced with a poison chalice. The public may not want us to cut much-loved events, but they also don't want us rating them out of their homes, and by majority, they have opposed this increase. Furthermore, they would expect us not to resile from asking difficult questions and for us to interrogate all lines of expenditure and not to be afraid of cost-cutting and reprioritisation just while things are so tough. So I want to acknowledge John Gillan and Bo Burns for their determination and their leadership. They have put in hours and hours of time into bringing something credible to this chamber today. And I also want to applaud you, Chair, for the fair manner in which you have chaired this debate, which can be difficult, I know, at times, because it's a strange place where the mood shifts from patronising and sarcastic 1 minute to groupthink, then to raw and emotional the next. So thank you for your calm chairing. I went last night to hear a debate, which was amazing, of 10 year 12 students, 5 from Linfield College and 5 from Mount Roskill Grammar on AI, and something that they just can't foresee the future. They can't, the merits and otherwise. But it really struck me that all of us are feeling a little fearful about the future right now. And as I walked to the town hall this morning, I stopped at that beautiful bronze statue of Robbie over in the Aotea Square, where a small group of us worked to have commissioned. Dovmai Robinson was staunch, and he encouraged others to be strong and not simply to take the easy path. Think hard about people and not allow yourself to be beaten into submission by those who may hold more power than yourself. We need to find resilience right now. As a little country, we need to remain nimble and responsive to change. In terms of change in my life, I have never experienced in Auckland the sense of despondency I am witnessing. Times are really difficult for many Auckland families. And the consultation, as has been discussed already, was taken before the worst of the current cost of living crisis kicked in. The Mayor refers multiple times in his notes not being willing to kick the can down the road. But how will this be interpreted by Aucklanders, kicking ratepayers instead? Aucklanders have had a tough time, and they are looking for leadership that understands affordability anxiety. Messages I'm getting are that council is out of touch. It's choosing to be tone deaf to the pain of families currently unable to meet their financial obligations. The Mayor properly refers to the challenge of trying to find balance between affordability and funding services and investments, and that's admirable. But there isn't the justification right now by comparing Auckland's rate increases to other cities and saying, well, ours is a little less. Auckland's stats right now demonstrate the challenges from unemployment, the level of mortgagee sales, bankruptcies. All of these are being keenly felt right now. It's not a great time. The current financial crisis is worse than I think any of us were expecting. It is frightening for those who stay in their homes on fixed incomes. So what is our message? We'll fix you? On the depreciation side of things, nobody since 2010 has championed the importance of fully depreciating more so than myself. But we are in a moment of extraordinary time. And I think it's going to take a special intervention to Awhi Aucklanders through this difficult time. And once things will improve, and I am optimistic for the future, we'll see an upturn as Christchurch and Otago have found. But we need to help Aucklanders through to that point of knowing when, and we can address these when things improve. I don't
Would you like an extension of time, councillor? Just see somebody move that.
Just very briefly.
No, way you go for another 2 minutes.
I think that there are some good things in this, and we shouldn't be afraid of actually having our CEO come back to us. I am excited about some of the things. It's not all just council's bad. The CCO reform that we're doing is magnificent. I love the fact that we've got the Auckland Future Fund off the ground. But I'm worried that all the good things will get lost in a lack of trust in council because we are being tone deaf. Going into the LTP, I'm really excited about the opportunities, especially in the areas of non-rates revenue. You, or many of you, know that I think we should be lobbying government. It wouldn't cost them anything to bring forward in trust and actually bring that to the table now. We could do with those funds, but we'll need to work together to do that. So I'm just saying, let's not dismiss this out of hand. Let's be courageous. Let's try and do things differently, because I think Aucklanders are experiencing something the like of which I've certainly not seen in my lifetime before. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Flipaina.
Kia ora, Hea Mana. My first acknowledgement is to you. Councillor Fletcher is correct. You have chaired and managed this particular issue with leadership, so I mihi to you. I, however, think a process needs to happen. If people are going to put up amendments, in particular for annual plan, long-term plan, it should be shared. Don't be shy and don't be scared to share if you wish to make changes. Leadership means being honest. And honesty is the best policy. We have, last year was the start, we ended up getting all the information leading in to this annual plan. I'm not going to say thank you to Councillor Gillen or Councillor Burns. I'm not, and the reason I'm not is because whichever group, I looked at my emails thinking to myself, man, I know that I didn't get contacted by them if they had an option to put up an amendment, because that's democracy. That's in trying to include all of us around this table. No emails. The last email that I got in regards to this was at 4:43. So whatever group that you're talking to, I don't want to be part of it. I'll leave it to you fellas. But I know one thing, I'm still going to continue to be honest with the ratepayers and the people, not only in Manukau Ward, that got me and Councillor Foley in to this council, but also across Tāmaki, because we're regional councillors. That's why, because we're regional councillors. Getting this at the last minute and then having to talk to our staff, our finance staff, and saying to them, what are the impacts? The impacts were going to be huge. And I'm not going to cover off those, but I just want to acknowledge two people. You firstly, Deputy Mayor, in regards to your opening whakaaro. I'm mihi to you because you laid it out as well, and you as well, Councillor Henderson, and to everybody else. But look, I am going to continue to be honest with the people that elected me, but also speak as a regional councillor. And that's the reason why I will not be voting for this amendment, as I indicated when I ended up having the first of my partai. I'm not going to vote for this because I have been told the impacts. I have heard about the impacts. It would have been great to at least get a heads up from people if they had issues, even after the election. So, look, all the best. All the best for you fellas. But I'm not voting for this. Kia ora.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. At the moment, one more speaker, and that's Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think I probably live on a different planet because I've come from a board of some quite successful businesses where when the environment's changing, you almost emergency move to try to find ways to change your operation. I think Duncan's got a few slides that I'm going to just share with you because there's a lovely old Latin saying that says, contra vera nihil obstat, against fact there is no argument. Because I'm not worried about the 7.9% so much as that it's been a continuous year on year on year on year real increase in the costs of people living in the city. We can flick to the first one, one more now. So here's inflation from the Reserve Bank since the 2011-2012 year. And you can see by indexing it from back to there, there's been a 39.1% increase over those years of Auckland Council in CPI. And so you would expect, if you were running a business and your costs were running at what CPI has been running at, I always like to see at about a CPI minus X where you try and do a bit better. But 39.1% has been the cumulative CPI over that time. Please remember that number because I'm going to show you some more. Next slide. The rates take over that same period. One more. There is the rates take starting at 1.31 and ending at 2.79. A 212% increase in rates. A 212% increase in the rate take while inflation was running at 39%. Now, I know there'll be some of you immediately come up with the next one, but we've had a bigger population increase. So we need to put that in as well. Next slide. Sorry, there's inflation and there's rates take, just for you to compare it. A 5.4 times as much rate increase as inflation has been. Next slide. The argument then will be, well, we've had a population increase. And since 2012, the population's gone up. And so I've applied a correction factor for that one as well. A 23% increase in the population of the city over that time. So you now need to discount the growth by another 23% to make it a per capita or per ratepayer. Next slide. There it is discounted. That takes account of the population increase. 39% inflation, 163% population corrected rate increase. That's still more than 4 times the rate of inflation. That is still more than 4 times the rate of inflation. We've been adding costs to the poor old sod out there day after day. And the thing that I have said in the Parliament, and I'll say it again here, there's only one thing in the world I hate. One thing. I don't hate my opponents, I don't hate other people's views and so on. I hate monopolies. Because monopolies can just do as they wish and charge you as they want, and you have no choice. If there were 4 different councils running this city, people would move them there to another one, or change their customer, or change whatever. But we are actually charged with being the monopoly provider of service, and after correcting for inflation, we've had a 4 times rate of increase of our costs. Next slide. Next one. Here's our full-time equivalent staff, and this has been given to me by our staff, so it's not my numbers made up. You can see we had 4 FTEs, 9,111 back in 2012. Around about 62% of the population of Auckland was, 0.62% of population was our full-time equivalent staff. I always believed that technology changes, efficiency gains from the merger, and a whole range of change of business practice would actually see that ratio drop. We'd see less full-time equivalent staff needed to run this operation than we did when it first got formed. Well, the population's gone up 23%, and our full-time equivalent staff, as of the figures I was given for the March quarter, 34.2%. And I'm sorry, but not one of you seem to be addressing that. You've been talking about the 7.9 today and whether it should be 5.9 or 6.9. But there's a much bigger issue that we face here, that the public, they don't know these numbers, because I didn't even know some of these till I actually pulled them all together, but they feel them. My God, they feel them. They feel them in their skin and their bones every time they realise their bills are coming in and just growing and growing, but the services are getting less and less and less. And so my view, Mr. Chairman, is that the one thing I want to pay credit, big credit to at least Councillor Gillen and to Councillor Burns for at least trying to get us to think about it, because if we don't think about an absolute root and branch analysis of where we are and what we do, then we'll be back at this table in a year's time with the same set of numbers. We'll be back here with the same, it won't be 3.5. Mike Lee's got a very safe bet on his hands. And if you want to do something really interesting, go to AI and ask AI to give you examples.
Councillor, I'll just look for an extension for you. Thank you. Carry on.
Okay,
You've got another 2 minutes.
Okay, well, it won't be that much. Go to AI and ask them to look at successful companies. Just ask the question, show me successful companies who have dramatically downsized their staff because of the world of technology and the world of new processes and ways. And you'll just see, in fact, you will sit there for hours. Companies who have just taken all of this out of their operation and moved that off, etc., etc. We have done a bit. Credit to the bit of the group shared services, at least to start on it. The wastage that goes on with Auckland Transport is legendary, and we've got to do that. But I beg you, please don't just sit on 7.9 today and say, that's it, I'm voting for this. I can see it's not going to get the numbers. I can do mathematics. I've worked it out. It's what about 15 to sort of 8 or 7. So it's not going to get through. Don't need to be a rocket scientist. Please don't ignore these numbers. Please don't ignore these numbers. If you like, I'll send you the PowerPoint around. I only put them together last night. We've had a massive growth in the costs we impose on the people of the city, well and truly above inflation, and well and truly above population growth. I'll leave that with you.
The rates take were wrong. Is that a point of order?
I can't allow cross talk, guys. Take it up with each other.
Come straight from the annual report.
Councillor Ferry, then Member Henry.
Kia ora, Just for the record, what was just being discussed there was a challenge from the Deputy Mayor that the rates take numbers presented on those slides were incorrect. I have no comment to make on whether they're correct or not. I just wanted to take my opportunity to relay that message from the Deputy Mayor, who chairs the Value for Money Committee and in the past has chaired the Finance and Performance Committee for several terms under previous mayors as well, to give context to why she might have that to hand. Right, so I wanted to make a couple of points. First is that we have had this discussion about the timing of this amendment. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of all of that. What I would note is that past amendments in the 2023 and 2024 budget debates, in both cases, what was put up balanced at the point of amendment. I didn't agree with how it was balanced, but it did balance. It wasn't asking for advice on how to do further cuts that would come later. It was balanced when it was put before us. And so that is an important difference here, where it would have been helpful if this direction had been socialised with all of us beforehand. We had had an opportunity to not only get the advice sought, and my view is we should seek advice before we vote on a budget, not after, but also for us to have a collective conversation about it, because that's actually the value of workshops. Workshops are, yes, about having a conversation with staff, but they're primarily about having a conversation amongst ourselves, collectively, to move from point A to point B, to progress things. We don't make a decision, but we progress things. And so that's, I'm particularly disappointed in the fact an opportunity was given for a conversation about it last Wednesday, and that opportunity was not taken up. In fact, it was denied that anyone was working on this. So the other major point I wanted to make was, before I move to a substantive point, was that we actually do have areas that have different rates now because their properties are valued differently. We also have a number of local boards that have targeted rates. And if people are going to move, people do have an ability to move around the city based on the rates they pay. So I'm not sure what the point was there from Councillor Williamson. However, the overarching point I wanted to make in response to the claim that we've had rates increases but not increases in services is that any of us who go out in our community can tell every day that there have been significant increases in services. There are more community groups getting grants. There are more community events, major, regional, local, tiny neighbourhood day grants than there were before the Super City existed. These have taken years to build up to contribute to the social cohesion of our neighbourhoods and streets. There's also been a massive increase in access to library services. You used to not be able to access every library across the region. You had to do troublesome interloans, and as someone who worked at the library, they were a pain in the arse. Now you can go to any of our libraries, you can return books to any of our libraries, you can get books from any of our libraries. We have massive improvements and increases in programs offered at community centres. We have more assets that have been built and people have access to as well, and those all have operating costs, which again costs more, above and beyond growth, because in some parts of the city we were actually under-delivering to the populations there, and we still are in some. That's the whole conversation about local board funding. Also, we have business support programs that we offer. The pest control programs, we kind of dropped the ball in the first couple of years after amalgamation. A lot of the environmental work had been funded through the regional council, who did a good job, but a lot of it was mapped to local boards who didn't have that regional footprint or the resources to actually do it properly. Now it's a shared responsibility, and we're seeing kōkako come back to the Hanuas. If that's not an increase in benefit to our community, I don't know what it is. And we can tell those stories all across the region. I have streams that are having eels come back to the awa for the first time in decades. And that is because of these kinds of investments by this council with our community. I also wanted to address this issue that we could go line by line, because actually we tried to do that last term through the Revenue and Expenditure and Value Committee, which Councillor Williamson chaired for the first part. We had Power BI data provided to us that broke things down into a great level of detail, as requested by Councillors Williamson and Turner. That was all provided. There were no proposals that came out of that I recall that actually worked on this line-by-line idea. The opportunity has been provided and not taken up. I also wanted to finally, appropriately given that a lot of this rates increase is due to the City Rail Link, point out we have had a transformational change already in transport in this city. We have more public transport routes available by bus, by ferry, and soon way more by train than we've ever had before. It is becoming a viable option for more and more Aucklanders to get around by public transport and ditch their cars. That is a massive service improvement for all Aucklanders, whether you drive a car or you take the bus or you ride a bike. The reduction in congestion, the economic benefits, and the sheer mental health improvement from not having to be stuck in traffic all the time for those who choose to use another method of transport is huge. So I will not be supporting the amendment. I will not take a call on the substantive, other than to say now that I appreciate the hard work that's gone into finding a balanced budget, and I will support the substantive at 7.9%, assuming this does not pass. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor. I was just checking if there are any more speakers. Thank you very much for that, Shane. I don't know how you knew I was about to do that, but yeah. Okay. Do we have a seconder for the extension of time? 3-second rule again. Oh, there we go. Okay. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Okay. Carried. Okay. We're going to go to the vote now.
So,
what's that? We're going to go to the vote now. Is there a call for a division on that? There was. Okay. All right. I'll hand that over. Whoops. Sorry, Your Worship. Sorry, guys.
yes, thanks for that. It's pretty around the corner. You don't look around. You've got a
Sorry,
sore
mate.
neck, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, sorry.
I know we're talking about the amendment here, but and everyone's praising everyone for offering up something different. There's actually a lot of work to get to 7.9. It is a zero rate increase plus a railway. And if you wanted to say that you guys should have, in the last few lots, made the railway bloody sort cheaper, but you didn't. And as far as presenting graphs and bits and pieces, if they're not audited carefully, it's just kind of like more showmanship. It's easy to want to sloganeer to say that we heard how terrible things are and we're going to make things up, as if we didn't know. We've got to nothing plus a railway. And you think we haven't made a lot of jobs to do that? There is no point. I'm not going to support this because you're just setting up the CEO to fail. And what's the point of doing that? You know, it won't happen. We've got $106 million. Poor bugger's got a fine now. And it's going to be $50 million worth of more diesel. The idea it's only going to be 25 and it's all going to get suddenly solved next week because President Trump now has found the Straits of Hormuz is nonsense. We're in for a reset in fuel prices for quite a long time. Forget that it's not just the chips going through, they've knocked out half the refineries. So it's not going to be good news. In terms, we heard a lot about hardship, and as if nobody knows that. And I've heard a lot about from people who haven't got businesses about how the business is going to be suddenly fixed. We have ratepayer. Council must continue to promote rates rebates and rates postponements and make those mechanisms easy to access. There is help out there for those people who genuinely find it hard. We'll continue to support the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme, which will provide a meaningful support for those who need it and requires government legislative backing. Most councils around the country have asked for this. There are ways and means of solving it, but it's easy to say, oh, woe is me. We've got this railway. If you don't pay for it this year, it's just going to be more next year. The idea of pushing out inflation is being put by those people who will guarantee that we don't get 3.5 next year and the year after. Well, I guarantee that we do, but as long as we stick with the sensible things we said we'd do. And there's still a lot of pressure on the chief executive, but if you set them up to fail, that's just dumb. It won't happen. And so I will not be supporting this, but I will be supporting what we promised in the long-term plan. And that's, people say things have changed. Well, what's changed most of all is fuel. And the already out of control CRL budget, it was out of control before I arrived, and it hasn't got any worse, thank God. But I think I just we should be responsive to change, not responsive to sloganeering. You know, this time someone puts up a slogan and says, "Oh, don't do this," that's not realistic. You know, we should be here for the people pointing out that we've got this down a naught plus a railway. And all you who sat around here for ages letting that railway go up by a lot, don't make speeches to me about saving money. Okay, that's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Worship. We'll put that by division now, so I'll just hand over to the staff here to run us through it.
Thank you, members. You are voting on the amendment via resolve. We will start the vote now.
Walter, your mic's on.
The amendment is lost 15 votes to 8.
That's lost. We'll move on straight on. What I'm planning to do now is go straight into the debate of the substantive. Then we'll just see how we go for half an hour. If we need to have a break after then, we'll have the break, but we'll see how much of it we can get through. So you may recall it's been moved, it's been seconded. We'd had the questions on it, so now I'm opening it up for anyone who wants to comment on it. Okay, if there being nobody, okay.
I did just have, and to Deputy Mayor's point around the slideshow before, I mean, the rates rises over that time, still a lot, but they weren't 200 and something percent, they were 100. Which is still a lot, but it's not 200. But the one thing we missed out, no, I just need to say, the one thing that was missing out there was our choice to increase capital, which has increased almost 400% in that time. So it's the one thing that's different. It's not attached to all those things. I'm taking...
That's another issue. You just let it go for it.
Anyway, that's all I want to say.
I'll just, hang on, Toe. We're just about there. Councillor Hills, have you finished your...
Yes.
I felt like you got interrupted. Yeah.
I said I only had 1 point, and that was it, just to correct the record.
Okay, that's the point. Take a call? I'll talk. Okay, I've got Councillor Turner. I'll call him for division. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Look, we've had a lot of debate around the amendment, but I just want to have my say here. I want Aucklanders to know that this vote hasn't been easy for me. I don't think I've ever struggled, if I'm honest with you, with a budget more than this one, and I've done some tough ones, because I know that people are doing it tough, and I know that the fuel crisis, on top of a number of things for Auckland families, is really tough. I'm going to hold this up. These are all the new things we're doing in this budget. And you know what it's costing the people of Auckland? Zero. It's a 0% rates for the water treatment plant in Wellsford, for the East Coast Bays Community Centre, the Tafo Pathway. All these things we have done through financial efficiencies so that the only cost to Aucklanders is the cost of the CRL, 235 million. When you all turn up for the opening, I want you to remember the vote today, because that's what it's about.
3.5 next year.
Sorry? Oh, sorry. Okay, well, that's all right. This budget has been developed in a period of unprecedented uncertainty. I just want to reiterate the financial efficiencies this council is making in this budget. 213 million, or a 7.1% equivalent in rates. If someone had put up an amendment for less, I probably would have gone for it. Your Worship, there's one thing I want to say to you as your deputy. I will hold you to account. 3.5 next year and the year after. You've promised that? And you
As long
have
as
to
we
do
do
it.
7.9 this year, but if you're going to not do,
No, he's got 2 more years to go.
but I mean, if we're not going to do depreciation, you won't get it.
Yeah.
But if we do this and we work with the chief executive and don't give them things which are impossible, I'm looking to do 3.5. I promised the long-term plan to be the long-term plan. So yes, I will, and we'll show you fellas.
Desley?
Yeah, and just finally, I wanted to say I listened to my own ward. They had a say. I always listen to them. 54% were in favour of the rates rise. 54% were in favour of the budget and 39% opposed. That's a 15-point margin. I know we're regional, but for the people of Ōrākei, I'm just saying I listened to their feedback, to those who gave it.
Good on you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, so I'll put that, are you speaking to it, Ken? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that the Tawhau pathway is not free. The Tawhau pathway is at $90 million for 12 kilometres, of which 3 kilometres is on the road and support and being done by Auckland Transport, leaves 9 kilometres. Now that 9 kilometres is only half finished, and we're looking, and they were in here knocking on our doors for more money just a month or so ago. And the Tawhau pathway is a really sound project, but it's another example of our delivery costing an arm and a leg. And the money that went to the Tawhau pathway to this stage, 48 million came from the government, didn't go to the trust to deliver the asset, went into council, and then council delivered the asset. I rest my case about where we should be looking for the real savings. Thank you.
All right, team, I hope we don't do too much repetition, but Councillor Henderson.
Faux pathway wasn't funded by this council. Now, can we get to the vote, please?
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to put it to the vote by division. I'll hand it over to the staff to run us through it.
Thank you, members. You are voting on the original motion. Be it resolved, and we'll start the vote now. Carried 15 votes to 7, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you for that. So that's carried. We got through that a little bit quicker than I thought. It's pretty important we get the fees done, so I'll just take some advice. Shall we do the fees and then go and then take a break? Okay, let's go. Andrew? I'll introduce the item. Is that right? Yeah. Purpose is to recommend changes to the rating policy and fees for adoption as part of the Council's annual plan 2026-2027. Have we got it up there? Have we got a mover for the fees? We've got